suffering with a habit that's become destructive, or maybe you know someone whose habits are impacting you or your family.
A secret that's becoming increasingly out of control, or maybe even a full-blown addiction to alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, social media, shopping, or pornography.
I'm Emma Heath, and this is my colleague, Jules Radford. Over these testimony sessions, people involved with the National Recovery Course are going to bring you the Recovery Course testimonies. Real people, real stories, and real transformation. The Recovery Course follows the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, yet as they were originally intended. A set of 12 spiritual steps where we put Christ back at the very heart of recovery. We will cover one step in each of these sessions. We recognise that our destructive habits are a consequence of pain, hurt, a broken relationship, loneliness, or an issue from childhood. The truth is, we all carry pain, and it's hard to become an adult without carrying some of the baggage of life. We know that identification is key when addressing struggles, and what better way to bring hope than to share in people's stories of how they have been set free from the trap of addictions, compulsive behaviours, and other destructive habits. We have almost made it to the end of the Recovery Course testimony series, and if you have stuck with it this far, then you should give yourself a massive high five, as this is hard stuff to hear, and you have stuck with it. Well done.
Today, we pull together all the previous steps and look at how we can stay clean and grow in the next stage of our recovery journey. If we believe that we were created by God for His purpose, then it stands to reason that we need to keep in regular contact with God. Because as we free ourselves of our addictions or compulsive behaviours which have been holding us back, we open ourselves up to endless opportunities to live out why we were put on this earth. Each of us has a purpose. However, we only find His purpose as we spend time with our Maker, God. How do we do this? Well, step 11 says we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. If I look back over my recovery journey, I can track back any relapses to not doing enough of step 11 or falling back into denial at step 1. When I was struggling many years back, I met with a very good friend who asked me a simple question. How's your relationship with God? And when I honestly responded, not great. In fact, kind of non-existent. He gently challenged me to read just one verse a day from the Bible. Wow, such a simple request completely changed my recovery journey. Why is the Bible so important? Well, it's the manual for living, written for us by our Creator. If you only read one book in life, make it the Bible. I was listening to a very famous coach a short while back, and he said the same thing. The Bible contains everything you need to live your life well and abundantly. Self-help books are good, but they're all just based off biblical principles.
We know that there is hope, no matter how dark things can feel. We encourage you to listen with an open heart to the testimonies each week and see how God can and will transform even the most hopeless of situations. He did it for me, He's done it for Jules, and He can do it for you. We will now hear a short testimony from John, who is involved with the Recovery Course in Kent.
Hello, my name's John McCard. I'm here to tell you a bit about my story. My addiction started pretty much really early. I had my first drink that I remember when I was about 9 years old. It was at a New Year's Eve party. I was given a little bottle of French beer and I took that drink and I thought, yeah, wow, this is amazing. And then after that, what I did was I just went round the room as soon as everyone was too drunk to realise what I was doing. I went round the room and just started finishing off everybody else's drink. I realise now that I drunk probably that first time I drank to blackout. I didn't know that then, but I know that now. And it sort of progressed really quickly. From that point, I'd go out most weekends and try to drink, and then rapidly into smoking pot and taking other drugs like speed and LSD and ecstasy. But it pretty much wasn't anything I didn't take, apart from magic mushrooms, and I only didn't take that because I didn't come across it. I would have done. And I wouldn't say it was all bad, but there was a lot of bad consequences started early on. It took me to jail. I crashed a car into a house. I got stabbed by a drug dealer, and I ended up in a coma. And after coming out of the coma and learning to walk again after 5 weeks in a coma, the first thing I did when I could walk again was get in a taxi and go and get a drink and ring up a drug dealer. I was more scared of being inside my own mind than I was of dying. And I didn't know a way out. I didn't see a way out. I was stuck. But I found a way out. I found that way out in the 12-step program. Someone come to the hospital when he spoke to me about his own addiction and that he'd been in recovery for 15 years, and it gave me a bit of hope. He said to me that I need never take a drink or a drug again. He didn't tell me that I never would. He just said that I need never take one ever again. And I thought if it's worked for him, then maybe this stuff could work for me. And I had a choice to make at that point. It was either they was going to put me in a hostel, and in this hostel, it wasn't a dry house. It was somewhere in an area where I used to drink and use drugs. And I knew that by the end of the first day in that hostel, I would be drinking and using drugs. Or it was to go to this rehabilitation centre that had been offered to me and to work a 12-step program. And any normal person would class that as a definite decision. Oh, I've got to go and do that because I'm going to live by doing that. But I seriously had to think about it. I had to think, do I go or do I go to where the drugs are? Luckily, I was blessed enough to actually go to the rehab centre because at that point I think I chose life. And I just did what was suggested to me to do in a recovery program, and I worked through the steps and I started to get better. Day by day, one day at a time, I got better, and one day at a time I didn't pick up a drink or a drug, and one day at a time I would start dealing with the problems that I'd accumulated, and one day at a time I started becoming healthier, spiritually, mentally and physically. I didn't go into recovery to find God, but it's the best thing I found in recovery. And now I know true forgiveness and freedom and happiness. I'm able to help other people. I couldn't even help myself. I couldn't even do up my shoes and they were Velcro at the end of my addiction. But today, I'm able to help other people, and it's an amazing feeling to be able to watch somebody's lights go on in their eyes, like somebody did with me. And it was freely given to me, and I just love that feeling of being able to help them and identify with them and learn from them as much as they learn from me. This recovery is a process that I believe I will be in for the rest of my life. But it's the best decision I never really made for myself. I've learned a lot more about me. I remember in step 3 when I had to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. And I thought, well, where's John in that? When I turn my will and my life over to God, where's John in that? But when I did that, I now realise that I'm more of me now than I have ever been. Life today in recovery is, it's like I've done a whole 180 turn. It's totally different. I had this life where everything was like, where I took drugs and drink every day, and I wasn't really a great person, and I won't say it was all bad, but now today I've got a whole new life where I have my family are back in my life. I have real friends that identify with me. I have a job. I'm a leader on a recovery course, being able to help other people. I have at my own flat, I have a car, but the best gift I've learned in recovery is that it doesn't really matter if I've got all that stuff or not, is that I can be all right without it. I'm never alone anymore. I have God in my life.
Today I am joined by Jason Rose, who is about to lead a group on the recovery course, and he has his own story of God's transformative power in his life. So Jason, welcome. Great to see you, and let's dive straight in. And can you tell us a bit about your story?
Yeah, thanks, Emma, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to share my story today. Yeah, I mean, I guess to all intents and purposes, first of all, my recovery is from alcohol, and I am an alcoholic, and that took some time to accept in itself for me. For people looking in, I had what you might be perceived as a fairly normal life, and I'm blessed with children. I was married, a decent job, roof over my head. So if anyone looking in wouldn't have known any different. I've always enjoyed drinking as part of my life, socially more than anything else. I certainly had my moments with binge drinking, etc. But it was really about 4 years ago that my life got turned upside down as a result of my marriage breaking up. I didn't know how to handle the situation, the pain that I was in. I just completely lost control of my emotions. I was just like a zombie walking around, and the only way I could numb that pain initially was by drinking. So at first, the very first few, the very first few weeks, I didn't actually drink. I actually went to the gym a lot, but I was coming home to an empty house that I didn't like, and then I was quite reclusive. People were aware of my situation and were encouraging me to go out and all the things that people say to try and be helpful, get out, go and socialise, meet new people, etc., etc. So a combination of the two of being at home alone and it's stirring up some very difficult memories meant I started to drink more frequently on my own, which was, looking back, was clearly a bad sign, and socialising more. But all the time I was trying to disguise. It was a mask for me. This this feeling of where was my life going, that I'd failed in my marriage. It was my second marriage, so I'd failed again. I was very, very self-critical. I was missing, my son living with me, my pets. I guess everything that, my life had fallen apart when I took my wedding vows. That was it for life for me. I'd taken those vows and had meant them, and I thought, you have trials and tribulations in any marriage, but I wasn't expecting what happened to me to happen, and I just didn't know. It just swept the carpet from under me. I didn't know how to deal with it, so my drinking just began to escalate without me realising it. At first, people who are my friends and family, even, and they won't to know, and I certainly wouldn't apportion any blame onto anyone else. But they were pleased to see me seemingly being more my old self, being the life and soul of the party. But it was such a mask to hide the pain that I was feeling. I would drink so I didn't care. I was anaesthetised to all of the feelings that I had. I then started to drink to black out more often. I drunk and passed out a number of times, but blackout, which I didn't really understand. It's only since I've been in recovery that I've understood the difference. But drinking to blackout and finding out the next day things that I'd done for quite long periods of time during a blackout, you know, places I'd visited that I didn't even realise that I'd been to. You know, that was very scary. As the drinking got worse, my anxiety began to build. I found it very difficult to sleep at night. I would lie there ruminating. I'd wake up at 2, 3 in the morning and not be able to get back to sleep. I wouldn't want to get up for work in the morning. You know, I would literally have to drag myself out of bed into the shower, and I would be obsessing about alcohol. I would be in the shower thinking, okay, you got 3 hours to get through. You can go to the pub at 12 o'clock in your lunch break. And my life became more and more controlled by alcohol. You know, I wasn't drinking for the effect anymore. It wasn't to numb the pain. It was it became a necessity in my life. You know, I'd moved into dependence. You know, my circle was waking up in the morning. My first waking moment was, when can I have a drink? It was getting to work. So there, okay, I was at work, I was functioning, but clearly I wasn't being as productive as I should have been at work. I would top myself up at lunchtime, get through the afternoon, get home or as close to home as possible, top myself up again, and pretty much buy some wine or whatever, or gin, and that would get me through the evening. And then I would, you know, kind of pass out on the sofa or whatever I might do, wake up, not sleep, and then the cycle would continue. There would be big nights out in between where I'd probably consume even more, but it had become a really bad situation.
It sounds a really dark place, and I can so identify with you in your journey. And I can't wait to hear what changed for you.
Yeah. So the changes for me, I mean, the biggest part for me was my own, what I now obviously know to be step one, and that acceptance. You know, at the time, the way I experienced it, I knew deep down, I had argued with myself every conceivable way to carry on drinking in some form. I tried to control my drinking. I tried to count my drinks. I tried to go dry. I had my addictive voice in my head that had taken over me, that had consumed me, that had pushed out, my inner child and God effectively had taken over me. It had consumed me from within, and I had run out. And I've heard lots of great sayings and analogies in the rooms over the last 12 months, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, that sums it up. I had reached that point. I was very fortunate in terms of, through my employer, that I was encouraged and I was able to go into rehab. So, this time last year, 12 months ago, I was coming up to 3 weeks sober. I'd got myself sober, knowing that I was going into rehab. So the first kind of life-changing moment for me was, I had not deliberately that I planned it, but I had I'd spent a couple of weeks sober. I'd picked up a drink again, and then that was me drinking for another 10 days. Not something I'm particularly proud of, and it wasn't planned as a last hurrah or anything, but that was me on my own, thinking about effectively the fact that was me coming to terms with the fact that I was an alcoholic. I couldn't say the words without bursting into tears at the time. I couldn't get the words out of my mouth, because to me that was me grieving for something that I knew I had to let go of. I knew I wasn't going to be able to drink again. And I didn't want to admit that to myself, because, I didn't want to let go of it, but I knew there was no other way.
And we covered a lot of that. didn't we, in sort of step one, you know, that denial and breaking down the walls of denial, which is so foundational in what the steps are about. And I'd love to sort of, you know, we could spend hours, I know, talking about your story today, but it's, you know, I know that you got involved with the recovery course. I'd love to hear about that, and also a little bit about step 11, which is a really key step in prayer and meditation, and what that means to you.
Sure, absolutely, Emma. So having been in rehab, I was again fortunate, and I now see this as God influence in my life through someone I met in the recovery course. In rehab, I beg your pardon. I was introduced to the recovery course. I was lucky enough to be accepted as it had just started, and that's where I met Nat and a wonderful, wonderful group of people who we all remain very, very close today. I was able to continue my step work with the people in the recovery course, and of course with Nat. And Nat's become a very, very dear friend. He's also my sponsor as well. And, he fills me with wisdom on a daily basis. In terms of step 11, again, lots of things I've learned over the course of this last year as a result of what I've learned with the recovery course, with rehab, with my own work with fellowship groups, etc. You hear lots of things as a result of attending and working on your own personal growth. Secrets cause sickness, unblocking yourself to God, unhealthy distractions. These are all things that were blocking me from having this daily connection and this awareness of God. A lot of it is allowed, where I wasn't because of my own situation, my own story, I'd lost the ability to trust, and I would catastrophize about things outside of my control and about the future. Being able to talk and to listen to God, and listening is a key thing, because before, I've always believed in God, but I was probably very selfish in a lot of my prayers. I would call upon God and ask him for things, in a selfish way now when I look back at it, when it suited me. If I was in a, particularly as my addiction got worse and I was in a sticky situation, oh, please God, I won't do this again. Can you just help me out here? Now, I look for guidance and I listen. And if I don't hear something straight away, then I've got the patience to wait until the time is right. And things will be revealed to me, and I won't rush into things. I will accept things that happen to me in a completely different way now. I will accept that I haven't got control of certain things. And I will know there's a reason that may not yet be ready to be revealed to me. It might never be revealed to me, but there will be a good reason for that, and I'm happy accepting that. I've handed over my will to God, and in doing so, I have that peace and serenity that I just didn't have before. And that, to me, that trust and that being able to listen, and to be able to live in the moment, to accept the day as it comes. I do try to meditate when I can. I wish I could do it more often than I do, but I take a lot of peace. But it's not, I connect with God all the time now. So it's not, whereas if I meditate, I will, and when I say meditate, guided meditation, I will try and take 10, 20 minutes out of my day to do that. And that's still important. But I've got an awareness of meditating when I'm engrossed in something creative. And it's similar with God. There will be times where I will, specifically say my prayers in the morning or in the evening. But it's a daily thing. I feel like I've got that connection throughout the day that I can just dip in and out and talk, or know when I'm being spoken to as well, and absorb that and listen and be guided.
That's brilliant. Honestly, it's so encouraging to hear your story. And, and I also know that you just over a year ago, you were broken and you went to rehab, you found the recovery course. You're now going to be a leader on the recovery course. And for me, that just shows your journey of now being able to, what we'll talk about in the next final step about helping other people. You are, a true testimony to that. And can you leave us with one last encouragement for us before we close?
Certainly, of course I will. If you had seen where I was 12 months ago compared to where I am now, the encouragement I would love to share with anyone who's new to the recovery course or even coming back to the recovery course if they've had a relapse, I really can't emphasise how much happier I am having, rehabilitated myself with the recovery course and with the fellowship groups and with all my own personal work that I do, the growth, my work with Nat as my sponsor. It all comes together. I have joy now. I have serenity. I can sleep again. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be able to close my eyes at night and know I'm, not even worry about going to sleep. I just sleep and I wake up and I'm refreshed and I'm ready for the day ahead. No more curling into a fetal position and not trying to get out of bed. My self-esteem has returned by helping others. I'm now in a position where I'm able to pass on and give back what I've been so lucky that people have given to me. I've met so many wonderful people this last 12 months, absolutely wonderful people. Sorry.
That's okay.
Really have. And I want to give that back. And it makes me feel good about myself. Last night, I babysat for my grandson for the first time on my own. There's no way I'd have been asked to do that before. So, it's a really wonderful place I'm in now.
It
really is.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today, and I'm sure that will really resonate and touch many people. It has mine. So thank you so much, Jason, and sharing your story today with us.
Thank you, Emma, and thanks everyone on the recovery course, and especially Nat. Thank you.
So this week we have been looking at the importance of prayer and meditation in order to draw closer to God. We can't do this in our own strength, and when we communicate with God, He helps us in ways that are so much more than we could ever ask or imagine.
Perhaps I can encourage and challenge you in the same way that I was. Will you try reading a verse from the Bible every day and ask God to speak to you through His Word? I promise you won't regret the few minutes taken to do this, and come back next week and tell your group the difference this has made. As always, just a reminder that the recovery course is being run all over the country and online. If you want to find out more, you can watch the full TBM Recovery Course series, visit the website at www.therecoverycourse.com or email us at info@therecoverycourse.com or follow us on any of the social media platforms.
Join us next time for session 12, where we look at the 12th and final step. We look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye from us both.
Goodbye.